Welcome to the Concrete and Block tutorial for C-Calc Pro 2, an app created for iPhones, iPads, and Macs. This is a long and thorough tutorial, so I have included links to the different sections of the video, so feel free to skip ahead to a specific section you may need help with. Now let's go ahead and open up the app. First, we will create a new project. To do this, we will type a new project name and click the green plus button to add the project. Now that we have our project, we need to make sure it is the selected project, so that everything we do will be saved under it. Swipe left on the project to present the menu. Then, click the green checkmark button. This will select the project, which is indicated by the green title, and the green checkmark to the right. Now, we can click the project to bring up the detail screen. From the detail screen, we can also select a project by clicking the green checkmark button. The detail screen can be left as is. However, let's fill in some information for the project. For a more detailed look at how this screen works, you can view our overview tutorial. There is a link in the description of this video, or from the help screen of the app. Once you have completed your project details, back out to the main menu. Notice that we can see which project is selected from the main menu. For this tutorial, we will create a block building to house a generator. The building will consist of 4 block walls, with a roof to be done by others. The building will sit on a concrete pad and be surrounded by 6 concrete bollards. Go into the block estimate module first and create an estimate titled Generator Building. Now back out and enter the concrete module and create 2 new estimates. Title 1, Building Slab, and the other, Building Bollards. We will start with the block building. Enter into the block estimator, and then into the block building we just created. From the Area Shape section, select the building icon. Now we need to enter the dimension we want the room. Enter a length of 18 foot 6 inch. Enter a width of 10 feet. Enter a height of 9 feet. Leave the quantity at 1 since we only require 1 building, and it will only be a single block thickness. In the Select Materials section, we can see that 8 by 8 by 16 cinder block is already selected. This is because this material has been selected as a favorite block material in the material database. We can also see the coverage area, waste percentage, cost, and labor hours here. Let's add another material to this estimate. Press the blue combo selector to bring up a list of all your block materials in the material database. Select the masonry cement and press the green plus button to add it. If you always want this material added by default, then you will need to select it as a favorite in your material database. Now, select the Results tab at the bottom of the screen. This is your chance to review the material and labor results to make sure everything looks good. These numbers are all results and cannot be directly edited. Changes must be made via the material database or in settings for labor rates and tax rates. When you are satisfied that the results look correct, press the blue Add to Estimate button. This will save the individual estimate to our quotation. A quotation will often contain many individual estimates and expenses, as you will see later in this tutorial. Now, let's enter into the concrete module, and then into the building slab estimate that we created earlier. Similar to the block module, the first thing is to select the shape we require. In this scenario, the shape is already selected. We need concrete slab or wall to be selected. Next, we need to enter the dimensions of our slab. This will be done by clicking the blue distance entry buttons and entering a distance with the calculator. Enter 20 foot 6 inch for length. Enter 16 foot for width. And enter 6 inch for thickness. Leave the quantity at 1. In the material selection section, simply leave cubic yards of concrete selected. This material was automatically added by default because it is selected as a favorite concrete material in the material database. We can see all the concrete materials available in our database by clicking the blue combo box. Materials can be added and deleted from our estimate here, but to edit materials, we must use the Material Database module. This is a separate tutorial, and there is a link below or in the help screen of the app. Now, select the Results tab at the bottom of the screen. This is your chance to review the material and labor results to make sure everything looks good. These numbers are all results and cannot be directly edited. Changes must be made via the Material Database or in Settings for labor rates and tax rates. When you are satisfied that the results look correct, press the blue Add to Estimate button. This will save the individual estimate to our quotation. A quotation will often contain many individual estimates and expenses, as you will see later in this tutorial. Now, let's enter into the concrete module, and then into the building bollards estimate that we created earlier. We will be creating the 6 bollards that protect the building from vehicles now. Select the concrete column. Enter 5 foot 6 inch for the height. Enter 10 inch for the diameter. Change the quantity to 6. Leave the cubic yard material selected. Review your results and add the estimate to our quote. Our next step, once all the individual estimates for this project are complete, is to enter into the Quotes module. To complete a full quote, we will work our way through the 3 tabs at the bottom of the screen: Materials, Expenses, and Quotes. The Materials tab shows us all of the materials that we included in all of our combined estimates. In this case, we have 2 block materials and 2 concrete materials. Each individual material shows the quantity required, the labor hours required, the cost, and a marked up cost. At this point we have no markup applied. Markup can be applied in 2 ways. Typically we will mark up the entire quotation, as you will see later in this tutorial. Another option is to mark up individual estimates. This allows us greater flexibility to apply extra markup to more difficult parts of a project or materials that may be difficult to obtain or are rare. To edit a single estimate, touch on the estimate, and a detail screen will appear where we can adjust material and labor markup. Knowing the bollard will be more labor intensive, let's mark the labor up by 20%. We can now see that the markup is reflected in the Estimate tab. The building bollards show a cost of $149.59 and a marked up cost of $155.03. The Expenses tab shows us any expenses we may want to add to the quotation. Unlike materials, expenses can only be added and edited directly from the Expenses tab. Expenses may include work permits, fuel, equipment rentals, subcontract quotations, supplier quotations, or anything else that may impact your quotation. For this example, let's create a fuel expense, a work permit expense, and an equipment rental expense. To do this, enter a name for the expense, and touch the green plus button to add it. To edit our expenses, touch on the expense to bring up its detail screen. From the detail screen, we can enter a more detailed description. Change the category of the expense. Enter a cost for the expense. And enter a markup for the expense. Keep in mind that this is an additional markup to the overall markup we will be adding to the entire quotation later on. The expense details screen also shows us a marked up selling price and gives us a section to add notes. The Quote tab will be our final step to creating a complete quotation. The Quote tab will allow us to do multiple quotes, which allows us to experiment with different supplier pricing and markups. Let's go ahead and create a new quote, named Quote 1, and enter into its details screen. Now, let's have a close look at the quote. The first section is the labor section. This shows the total labor hours of all our estimates. Our labor rate, from settings. Our calculated labor cost. Labor markup percentage. And subtotal after markup. I will change our markup to 10%. This will cause the app to instantly recalculate the subtotal. The second section is the materials results. This shows the material cost of all our estimates, the material markup percentage, and the subtotal after markup. I will change our material markup to 20%. The third section is the expenses results. This shows the expense cost of all our expenses, the expense markup percentage, and the subtotal after markup. I will change our expense markup to 5%. The final section is our totals. Here we view our labor subtotal, our material subtotal, our expenses subtotal, and the addition of all three subtotals. All subtotals include any markups that we applied. Tax rate is taken from our settings, but can be modified here as well. Then we get a tax subtotal. And finally our grand total. Below the final section, we have a simple notepad where we can create notes specific to this quotation. Once we have a completed quotation, it will be saved within the app. We may want to share the quote. We can do this with the share button in the navigation bar at the top of the screen. Touching this button will bring up Apple's standard share dialog. The options you see within this dialog are dependent on the device you are using, as well as which apps you have installed. Typically, from here you will be able to print your quotation, save a PDF of it, or email it. Thank you for watching this concrete quotation video. Taking the time to learn the app will greatly increase your ability to quickly and accurately calculate individual estimates, as well as full quotations. At this point, I would suggest either experimenting with the app and learning with a hands-on approach, or viewing more of our video tutorials. Remember that all the tutorials and manuals are accessible from the app's help screen. If you really stuck with something, or you need to report an issue, our email link is also available from the help screen. My recommendation would be to view a few of the calculator tutorials, particularly the dimension entry video to learn how to work with imperial and metric dimensions, and the scaling drawings video. If you work on large drawing sets, the scaling feature of the calculator will be a valuable tool to quickly take off large quantities of material. Once again, thank you for watching and have a great day.